And get ready for the sequel. Joe Biden and Donald Trump now gearing up for a repeat of the 2020 election following their big Super Tuesday wins. And with Nikki Haley formally dropping out of the Republican race in just about 27 minutes from now. Let's bring in Jason Miller. He's a senior advisor for the Trump campaign, and welcome to you.
Morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
So has Donald Trump and Nikki Haley spoken? And if not, when will they speak?
Well, really, Bill, this isn't about Nikki Haley. This is about President Trump and the absolute dominant performance he put on last night. Texas, California, Tennessee, Alabama, even looking at states who have open primaries such as Virginia, President Trump dominated, Bill, in a way that no one ever has in a contested primary. This was a complete wipeout. So at this point, this is about, do you want to beat Joe Biden or do you want to help Joe Biden get reelected? That's the only choice at this point. And we're seeing President Trump already beating Joe Biden in the general, whether it be nationally, the battleground states, independents, young voters, Latino voters, across the board. Voters are sick and tired of Joe Biden. They want President Trump back.
Got it. I understand your answer there. Do you expect her to call him?
Again, it's meaningless at this point. What we have seen are folks already uniting behind President Trump. In fact, I got a call this morning from a titan in the investor community who had been sitting out saying, we want to get on board with President Trump, and he wants to bring all of his friends. We've seen other folks who've previously run against President Trump, whether it be Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, Doug Burgum, all get behind President Trump. And when you look at those numbers in the general election, President Trump is doing so much better with Republicans than Joe Biden is with Democrats because they want President Trump's policies back. And again, Bill, nobody has ever dominated a contested primary like this before.
Jason, I want to ask you about something that happened last night on MSNBC. We know that immigration has risen to the #1 issue across the country. We see that in poll after poll. The reasons for that are because people see with their own eyes what's happening and they feel what's happening in their communities. That's not what the panel at MSNBC took away last night. Watch here.
Look at some of these exit polls. I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the #1 issue. Yes. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very contested area.
Build the wall. Like, what?
President Trump's instincts on this issue were right from the beginning. What do you think happens for the Democrats and Biden if they don't take this issue seriously like last night?
Well, this is why Democrats are going to lose in the general election. And when I saw that clip last night at the MSNBC panel, I was sickened. Really, that's the word, is sickened. I would like to see those panelists go and look the parents of Lake and Riley in the eye and say that same thing. Say that to them. Say that to the people who have been hurt by this Joe Biden crisis that he's created of his own doing at the southern border. The people who can't make ends meet because of inflation. The people who are dead in Ukraine, people who are dead in Israel because of Joe Biden's weakness. That's why we have to get President Trump back. But it's such a disconnect from reality, what we saw, and it's just, it was disgusting. That's all I can say.
So we had a statement last night from Nikki Haley's team. Came in late. I just want to read one or two of the lines, okay? And I just want to know, as a campaign, how you're going to address this now that it's one-on-one. Today, in state after state, there remains a large block of Republican primary voters who are expressing deep concerns about Donald Trump. It continues, that is not the unity our party needs for success. Just among your team down there and what the former president has to say about that, how will you go about tackling that issue with 7 months and 29 days to go?
Well, it's just plain wrong. As I said before, President Trump is doing better with Republicans than Joe Biden is doing with Democrats in the general election. President Trump is winning in most of the states, Bill. You see it between New York Times and Bloomberg, between about 4 and 14 points with regard to independent voters. The people who've swung both ways, maybe they went with President Trump in 2016, maybe they went with Joe Biden in 2020, they're back with President Trump now. And everyone says they were better off with Trump, whether it be the economy, whether it be the southern border. So that statement last night is just, quite frankly, fake.
On call for number 4 here, we have President Biden versus Trump on enthusiasm. And I'm just curious what the White House and the Biden campaign took away from last night, because across the board on these numbers, it's not just in terms of dominating the Republican nomination. On some of these numbers, like enthusiastic to vote at 48%. Think about Minnesota, where you had over 20% of Democrats not want to vote for Biden yesterday. What kind of a campaign will President Trump be running? Will he go to places like Minnesota that might have seemed out of reach for Republicans before? Does he plan sort of what, as Laura Ingraham described it last night, a 50-state campaign strategy?
Yeah, you bring up a really good question, and also I'd follow up with the fact that Minnesota and Virginia are both going to be in play in the general election. If we listened to President Trump and made that one extra trip to Minnesota in 2016, I think we would have flipped the state. I think we would have been able to do it. As it was a little less than 50,000 votes. We're going to be putting certain states into play that haven't been for a long time. Those are two of the big ones I'm really looking at. But again, when you see in these primaries, the Democrat primaries, whether it's Michigan, we had over 100,000 voters vote against Joe Biden. These are folks who are not going to come back to him. This is different. A protest vote of that magnitude for a state that was decided by less than 10,000 votes in 2016, that's a big deal. You see it happen in Minnesota. And Dana, you know this from being in the White House. They have a candidate problem right now. If they put him out there too much, people realize the gaffes and the cognitive decline and all of that. But if they hide him, then the press corps jumps all over him. In contrast with President Trump, we're going to take him on the road. We'll be in Georgia on Saturday and go and get this thing locked down. You
know, speaking of the road, if I could, I think it was last week when Donald Trump said he'd like to have a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York. And he wants to go to places and put them in play. Can you tell us today what could be the most surprising location he will visit during this campaign?
So in my third campaign of working for President Trump, one of the things I've learned is never to go and break any news that he could break. So I'm going to let him go and do that on his own. But there are going to be some good surprises, some pretty exciting things that are going to show that it's not just lip service. We are going to put states in play. And you guys are there in New York. You see what the Democrats have done with that once great city, with that once great state. It's terrible. They've completely destroyed it. They walk around, the crime on the street, the filth, the out of control, prosecutorial people. We're going to go and put a lot of states in play, and it's going to surprise people.
All right, Jason, we're going to let you get away with that answer. But if you go to Wilmington, Delaware, call me first because I'd love to break the story. Great to have you here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.